zero property.
Before we get started, we'll have a couple housekeeping things. If you have questions and you want to ask a question, we have note cards in the back. And once you have that filled out, please see John over here in the blue sweater, and he will collect your questions, and then we'll ask them towards the end of our program here. We'll open it up for audience questions.
Yes. Okay. I'm Local News Rumble. Kent, we're on Rumble, X, Facebook, YouTube. Mm-hmm.
I know, I think John Brennan's the one on the run now.
God willing. Oh, my. Nice looking crowd. It's cool. Who's from the furthest distance away? Who drove in the furthest? Where are you from?
Painesville.
Painesville, that's a little bit of a ride, yeah. Anybody else?
Fremont.
Oh, Fremont. Oh, now you're coming. That's a long way, yeah.
Portland.
Yeah, Portland, huh? Appreciate you guys coming in.
I think I have you all beat. I came in from East Lansing, Michigan this morning, so I always win that at my family reunion, so.
You should have a good audience listening, watching online. They're streaming it live, so we expect to have a pretty good crowd. A lot of interest around the state. A lot of people are concerned about this issue. And so we're appreciative of you guys being here to talk with us and, learn a little bit about it, but also get your questions answered. That's the main idea. So thanks for showing up.
We're going to go ahead and get started here. My name is Dakota Sawyer. I will be your moderator tonight. I am going to open us up. We're going to have Dr. John Diamond lead us in the opening prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray first. Father, we just come to you tonight, Lord, just asking your guidance, your grace, your wisdom. Lord, we are starting a very noble cause here. We know that your word says to pay taxes, but there is a limit on the amount of taxes your word even says to pay. And beyond that is theft. And when it's done by government, then it becomes tyranny, Lord. So we just pray for your wisdom. We pray for your guidance. We pray for each of the moderator and everybody on the panel. We pray that as there's questions that need answered, that you would place them on our minds and that you would give us a meeting that is civil, peaceful, and fruitful. And we pray that in Jesus' name.
Amen. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord and Lord.
I want to thank you all for joining us, for those here in person and for those tuning in online. My name is Dakota Sawyer. I am the field coordinator for the John Birch Society, covering the western half of Ohio. Dr. Giantman covers the eastern half of Ohio. Also a lobbyist and strategist in Columbus, represent numerous clients down there, as well as I am the chairman of American Republic Policy, a policy think tank out of Columbus. I will be your moderator for this evening, and we're going to go ahead and introduce our panelists, starting with Tom Zawitowski.
Hi, I'm Tom Zawistowski. I'm the president of the We the People Convention, which is a national organization. We have 100,000 members across 50 states, but we started here in Ohio, and we're based in Akron, Ohio.
Hello, hello. Before we get started, a round of applause for Ohio Political News. The number one source for real news in Ohio. My name is John Plechnik, and while I've been called many things over the years, some not so nice, the nickname that I prefer is Commissioner No, because I always vote no on taxes. My other claim to fame, small that it may be, is that I'm a tax professor. So when the politicians in Columbus say, "You don't know what you're talking about," I say, "What do I know? I'm just a professor. I've just studied this my entire life. What do I know?" But here we are together to learn together about how we're going to abolish property taxes in Ohio and how we're finally going to hold government to account.
Thanks, man. My name is Leonard Gilbert. I'm a resident of Mentor, Ohio, and I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia. So if you hear me say yes, ma'am, no, sir, thank you, you're welcome, please, that just comes out, okay? I started this journey about 10, 12 years ago. I wrote my first article about the property taxes, and I saw what was happening, and this thing is bigger than the dollar and cents issues for me. So you're going to talk a lot of dollar and cents issues tonight, but I can tell you something. The reason why it's bigger than that is because what's at stake here is generational wealth and your ownership and liberty. And if you miss that, you may as well just kiss the rest of the dream goodbye. All right, Brian.
Thank you, Leonard. My name is Brian Massey. I live in Concord Township. Been there 20 years. Been looking at the property taxes for well over 10 years. And I basically started looking at my property tax bill. Been in the House 10 years, and I saw it went up 40%. I then came up with the statement that if we stay on this path of ever increasing property taxes, they're going to price me out of my home. I then started to attend commissioner meetings, and Commissioner Plechnik can tell you that we've been heavily involved in Lake County, getting a lot of public records requests, analyzing financial statements of the taxing authorities, and I can say that it's not a pretty sight. Unfortunately, they're just sucking the lifeblood out of the community. Money is being taken, from the taxpayers, needs to be in their hands and not held by the taxing authorities. So hopefully we can answer your questions. Leonard and I and Keith Davey and John Mara, Mayor of Timberlake, and Elaine Cross from Portage County, we are the 5-member committee that actually went to the Attorney General and also the ballot board to get approval to collect the signatures. So we're just messengers. We're nothing special, average citizens, and we need your support to get this on the ballot for November 2026. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for those introductions. We want to recognize some dignitaries in the crowd. We have John Kalis, who's on the NOACA board. We have a candidate that is running for the 13th district in the Ohio House. Anybody that I missed? Any other dignitaries we have here?
Satari.
Oh, and we have George Satari, our sponsor for this evening. Monday Night Roundtable. And Steve Krause, my former co-host on Monday Night Roundtable, both George and Steve. Tune in every Monday night from 7 to 9. Bruce Christopher, Medina Township trustee. Joe Miller, State Central Committeeman. And then Linda O'Brien, she's running for Mentor School Board. Is that correct? All righty. Anybody else I missed? Perfect. We're going to get started. Tonight's program, we're going to open up with some questions that I've curated myself to start us off here, and then we'll get into the audience questions. Like I said, if you have questions, write them on the note card and hand them to John as we move throughout our program, and we'll get those once we get to audience questions. So my first question for you gentlemen is, could you briefly outline why you believe eliminating property taxes is or is not the right path forward?
Start with me. Okay. When I started looking at property taxes, I would try to educate people on the property taxes. Talk about inside, outside millage, House Bill 920, 20 mil floor. After the first 15 minutes, everybody's eyes would glaze over and they'd no one understand it. And I said to them, well, don't feel bad about that. Many legislators don't understand it either. But what I have come to realize, this is more than a dollar and cent issue. This is truly a freedom and liberty issue. Home ownership is that foundation. Without home ownership, what are we? But serfs to the government. And we've come to realize that I paid off my mortgage and I'm still paying annually to live in my own home. Therefore, I am merely a renter from the government. When you take it, what I've come up with, there's a sign here that shows the size of government. The other statement that I made is that the public sector, in the state and at local levels, has outgrown the private sector's ability to pay for the services. And our concern is that will continue. Unfortunately, there are no checks and balances in our system. When a taxing authority wants to put an issue on the ballot, commissioners can't object if they've got the authority. The county budget commission, made up of the auditor, treasurer, and prosecutor, they have no authority to change that. So we need to say, well, it's up to the people. Many of the people are voting on emotions. We try to educate people on the housing affordability threshold. Math is not a strong subject for many people, but when you take a look at their mortgage, their utilities, and their property taxes, if that equals 30% of their annual income, that house is deemed unaffordable. That doesn't mean that you have to move. It just means you're going to have less needs for your needs and wants, less money for your needs and wants. So, as Leonard said, this is also a generational problem. I want to make sure that freedom and liberty is passed on to future generations. Thank you.
Leonard, before you go, if you're driving a Mercedes ML 350, your lights are on in the parking lot.
Too rich to be here.
Leonard, go ahead.
Yeah, this came out to be very simple for me. Realistically, when you look at our society, we're in some serious trouble. All right? And why do I say that? Everybody thinks the federal is all in good shape. They think the states are all in good shape. But guess what? This whole country is in trouble. And here's what happens when a country is in trouble. When you start to look at the reality that you've exceeded the ability for the private sector to pay for what you're doing, now you're right in the range of tyranny. And when that happens, if you don't own anything in an environment like this, I don't know if you realize this, but our state budget, 50 to 60% of that comes from the federal. What happens when that spigot gets turned off? We're in trouble. And if you don't own anything, you're going to be at the whims of the government and trying to bail them out, as opposed to us, we being the taxpayers, we'll be punished for something that we never saw coming. And that's why this is important to me. We got to start somewhere, and to me, home ownership is that foundation. Because if you can own something within the reach of any government or any other man, that is true freedom and true control.
It's been said the rent is too damn high. Well, the property taxes are too damn high. Amen? And in fact, the rent is so high because the property taxes are so high. Many tenants and renters don't get it, but all property taxes are passed right through. You think the landlord is eating that cost? No. Why are our rents going up and up and up? It's not magic, folks. It's not a mystery. Property taxes are going up and up and up. So whether you rent or you own, this issue hits you home. The property taxes are too damn high. And so far, all we've heard from Columbus are nibbles around the edge of the issue. Property tax reform to them means creating committees, issuing reports, giving new authority to the Budget Commission, procedural safeguards, transparency, blah, 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 blah. What we want is our property taxes to be lower. And when this started, if our state reps and senators had done their job, I think most of us would have been happy if they simply voted to eliminate all inflationary increases. I think most of us would have been happy and secure in our retirement if they would have given a 100% property tax exemption for our seniors. But they did nothing. And year after year, our taxes went up. But in this last reval, our property taxes didn't just spike, they exploded. This was a tax bomb, folks. A gift, if I can call it that, from the Biden administration. And that inflation passed through to our property taxes. But our friends in Columbus knew full well this was coming. They understand that taxes go up automatically with inflation, and they knew that double-digit inflation would mean double-digit tax increases for all of us. I still say, as we have all these reps and senators claiming that they're working hard for us on tax reform, why won't you propose a single meaningful tax cut? I don't want another committee, I don't want another report, and nobody gives a damn about more procedural fairness for the future. We have a problem now, and we want our taxes lower. If you look at what it would cost them, if you look at what it would cost them to give a 100% property tax exemption for seniors, it's remarkable how little it really is in the grand scheme of Ohio's budget. We have a record-breaking budget, folks, this year in Ohio. It's over $100 billion. And by the way, some state reps like to parse words with you, and they say, oh, it's only like 50, 60 billion. Well, they're trying to say their general fund budget is only 50, 60 billion. But where I come from, I want to know what you're spending in toto. And their total all funds budget is over $100 billion. And the bottom line is, we know what a property tax exemption would be for our seniors because Senator Al Catrona from Mahoning County proposed a 50% property tax exemption for seniors, and the Senate costed it out at $1.5 billion. So you don't have to be a math professor to know that multiply that by 2, and the cost for a 100% exemption for our seniors would be $3 billion, or wait for it, less than 3% of Columbus's budget. So when a state senator or state rep says to you, I can't afford to exempt seniors from property taxes, no way I can find the money, they're saying they care about you less than 3% of their budget. That is abominable. And that, friends, is how we got here today. They are not willing to give up what would be an inflation adjustment for their raises to help our seniors. They're not willing to give up future increases. Promising we won't raise your property tax values based on inflation again. It would just mean no future increases. Won't even give up that. So that's why, let me say these 3 words, we the people are going to fix this, and that's why we're collecting signatures to abolish property taxes. Thank you.
He's right. He's right. What most people don't know, even people who live in Ohio, that really Ohio was the foundation of the United States. Ohio was the first state after the flowed from that. So our motto, the heart of it all, is so apropos. We have a guy running for governor named Vivek Ramaswamy. The best in Florida and Tennessee. Okay? But there's a problem. And so I come at this issue from a very different perspective. In the 1900, the year 1900, 125 years ago, right out there, Cleveland, Ohio, was Silicon Valley. In 1900, there were more patents filed in Cleveland, Ohio, than the rest of the world combined. Everything from streetlights to manufacturing things and all that. We still have, I just think Ohio, like America, has been gifted by God just disproportionately, because we've got it all. We've got a great lake. We've got inland lakes. We've got great rivers. We've got mountains in the south. We've got farmland in the west. We've got big cities. We've got little villages. We've got railways to beat the band. We got the best highway system because it started here. Okay? We have it all. Why aren't we competing with Florida and with Tennessee and with Texas? One thing. Government. Government. Our government is the biggest handicap to you being as successful as people are in other parts of the country. The Buckeye Institute put out an email just to give you some numbers about this issue. And in their email said, a perennial and paramount problem has been the ever-rising cost of maintaining Ohio's extraordinary, complicated local government structure. 49 different types of taxing authorities. 49 different, like you can name tax, like property tax, sales tax, income tax. There's 49 taxing authorities, and more than, and get this, 6,500 local government authorities can levy taxes in Ohio, including the generally known municipalities, townships, schools, and libraries, and the lesser known local councils, workforce investment boards, and community land reutilization corporations. According to the Ohio Department of Taxation, these sundry authorities impose the 8th highest local tax burden as a percentage of income in the nation. The 8th highest in the nation, a worse finish in Ohio's 12th place ranking in fiscal year 2021. So we went from 12th to 8th. Now, when the Tea Party started in 2008, 2009, I was a leader of the Portage County Tea Party and later became the head of the Tea Party in Ohio through the Ohio Liberty Coalition. The big issue then was Obamacare, which is funny how it's back in the news this week and this time because the Democrats are shutting down our government because Obamacare is breaking our nation. We in the Tea Party knew that Obamacare, socialized government medicine, was bad medicine. It was bad business because it would be more expensive, but it was mostly a liberty issue. If the government controls my health, I can control you. If I can withhold that surgery that your child needs, I can make you stand on your head in the corner for as long as I want. That's why we fought Obamacare. Now we are faced with this issue of property taxes. And as Leonard said, and Brian, two awesome patriots, by the way. I'm proud to be in this panel with those men. They said it's about freedom and liberty. You can't own your house, right? The whole foundation of the United States, what sets us apart from the rest of the world, is ownership of property. Most Americans don't know you can't own land in most other countries. The government, the king, owns it all. And now we don't own our land. We own, as John said, we're renting, right? We're renting. So while everything you're going to hear tonight, we're going to answer your questions about, what happens when we repeal property taxes. I want you to understand that there's something fundamentally bigger at stake here. It's not just about you saving money on your bill. That's a big deal, okay? It's not just about that. It's not just about the liberty and freedom issue. This issue is about government reform. What you're fighting for is to send a message to every little nook and cranny of the government, whether it's NOACA or it's township trustees or a mayor or a school board. You're trying to send a message to them that they've forgotten that they serve you and we don't serve them. They've forgotten that their focus every day needs to be on how can I provide the services you need at a cost you can afford. And when I've spoken to Vivek Ramaswamy and his aspirational message, the problem is that if he is going to try to implement that vision to make Ohio competitive with Florida and all these other states, he's going to face tremendous resistance. What woke me up to this, and I've been supportive of this philosophically since Brian and Leonard first talked to me, but my concern was, could we win? Can we raise the money we're going to need? Can we win the fight? Because, believe it or not, I'm probably the only person alive in Ohio today that has actually done this before. In 2011, as the head of the Ohio Liberty Coalition, we the people got 600-some thousand signatures and put the Ohio Healthcare Amendment on the ballot and won all 88 counties by 60%. But I also know how hard that is to do, because it was really hard. It was really hard. But we have to do it because we are on the brink of the biggest change in the history of mankind with AI. It's going to change everything. And the problem for us is that none of the people who run our schools or run our counties or our townships or anything else has any interest at all in applying that to become more efficient, to save money, to make it better for less. This is going to be their incentive. Because when we take your money away, you're going to have to start to think about how to do it different. Let me be clear, particularly to our audience, I'm sure they're all watching the stream. Is anybody here an anarchist? Raise your hand. Any Antifa here at all? Do any of you not want police? Anybody here? Anybody here not want fire? Anybody here not want to educate our kids? We're not anarchists, and we're not stupid. We're patriots, and we're conservative. And that means that we will pay for the services we need. That's what adults do. But damn it, we want a return on our money. And we're not getting anything close to that. And I'm hoping in this discussion we will highlight some of those things. Because as Donald Trump likes to say, they've been ripping us off. They've been ripping us off for years. Yeah, they have. Every single one has. And so let me just end with this statement. People want to say, Brian, how are you going to replace this? Leonard, how are you going to fund the schools? John, give us a way to replace the money. You're missing the point. The goal isn't to replace the money. The goal is for you to redo your business to be more efficient and save us money. You're not going to get all the money. We're going to stop you from getting all the money you got because you're overpriced. You priced it out of our ability to pay for it. So we're going to work with you to make sure we have the best damn police we've ever had. And we have the best schools we've ever had. We have the best county and city government we've ever had. Because we're going to get rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse. And we're going to fund it in a fair way. And that fair way isn't by making me rent my home for the government for the rest of my life. Okay?
My next question is, Michigan Republicans this year in their budget process were able to find cuts of $5 billion from their state budget. How much do you think that we could cut from Ohio's budget? What would be the relative operating budget total, the total cost of Ohio's budget, be in your mind?
Starting out with a tough question already.
Yeah, come up with a tough one right off the bat. Interesting that, follow up what Tom said, many people have chastising me, gone on the radio and said, it is irresponsible of Brian Massey to abolish the property taxes without replacing the property taxes. And I said, well, that's interesting, but it's funny, the politicians at the state level, they all talk about, we're going to eliminate the income tax. But it's funny, no one has said, how are you going to replace the income tax? So is it Leonard's role, my role, John's role, Tom's role, to say, we can tell you that we don't think you need 611 school districts in the state of Ohio. Lake County Auditor Chris Galloway, he has been chastised, I'm sure, but he was the leader and said, I think there shouldn't be any more than 94 school districts in the state of Ohio. One for each county, and in the larger counties you'd have a couple more because of the number of children. I've also said that, well, what is the role of government? Should government be involved in property valuations? I've never thought that should be their role. So, in Lake County, we paid $1.8 million to a third-party appraiser to appraise all our properties. They control our destiny, but they're not accountable to us. You know, when I found that out, I said, well, wait a minute, we had a tea party in Boston a few years back on that very thing. So, if we eliminate the property taxes, we're going to save probably, we were guesstimating probably at least $250 million paid to third-party appraisers. We don't need them. I've also heard in Lake County, they said, well, Brian, if you eliminate property taxes, you're not going to need the auditor or the treasurer. And I said, well, that's a start. Right? It's a start. Now, what about the state level? Does anybody know how much money we are spending because of property valuations? I'll bet it probably starts with a B instead of an M, like billions. So I can't tell you that if we eliminate property taxes, we're going to save $20 billion, but I bet you we're pretty darn close to that.
Okay, I'm going to make this very simple because my grandmother and mother taught me some basics about economics. I used to ask my mom for $5 all the time. And she looked at me and said, I don't have $5. So I used to think maybe if I caught her at the right moment, you know, I could get that $5. But I never got it. After years go by, I looked at my mom and said, you know, you could have given me that $5 if you wanted to. She said, yeah, I could have, but I never did. I said, well, why was that? She said, let me give you something about economics. Number one, men have to be restrained. Because if you don't, we'll spin ourselves into oblivion. Number two, I gave you the $1 because you had to learn to manage with what I gave you. So during that time you were growing, you started to realize what was important to you. Brian brought up a very good point about what is the role of government. So before you start putting numbers on it, you need to start asking yourself, what is that role? The government exists only for one reason. And when I looked at that, they said, no, it's bigger than that. No, it's very simple, all right? We are to promote law and order. That's it. But when I said it, they said, what do you mean by that? That's exactly what governments do. They're not there to create money and make jobs. We're the ones that's creating the money, and we're giving it to the government. So all we're saying is, as Tom said, we're not anarchists. We're saying, live within your budget, take it away from my house, give me some true ownership, and guess what that does to a state? it grows. Contrary to what people believe, when you cut taxes, you actually grow. They say, what do you mean by that? The very thing that we want to talk about is getting rid of the income tax. Well, guess what? If you get people to work, you keep the income tax there, guess what? You got more money coming in. It's not that complicated. But we are killing the state, one tax at a time. And if we don't stop it, as grandmother always said, if you want the hole to stop getting deeper, you put the shovel down. All right.
We know where this question comes from. When the Pharisees asked Jesus, should I pay my taxes or not? They weren't asking a genuine question. They either wanted Jesus Christ to say, no, don't pay the taxes, so that the Romans would come for him. Or to say yes, and then the people would hate him. They didn't actually want a public policy discussion with Jesus. They wanted to destroy him. And this question is asked by people who want to end this movement to abolish property taxes. They know full well that there are many ways that the state budget could be restructured. There are much savings that could be achieved at the level of the school district where most property taxes are spent, over 60%. Combining districts is a start. I always say if you fired half the administrators and you paid the other half as much, you'd still have too many overpaid administrators. There's no shortage of things to cut, but they know full well that if you give a specific line-by-line answer of one way of cutting the $20 billion, then the people who are cut will come for the petition signers and oppose the movement. What's more, Brian Massey and the other four who filed this petition don't have the authority to actually make that decision. It's ultimately going to be in the hands of our state reps and senators, whether we like it or not, to decide what to cut. And so they're being facetious when they say it's irresponsible for you to propose this without giving us a comprehensive plan of what to cut. They're really just trying to undermine support for this movement. But I will say that fundamentally, there are three answers to this grand question of what we do next. And I don't like two of them very much. Possibility, future number one, is that we do nothing. Property taxes continue to increase with inflation, and our auditors have already warned us from county to county that the next reval is looking to be 25% on top of the 30% that Ohio experienced on average last time. That will be a mammoth tax increase. You want to talk about seniors being taxed out of their homes, they're going to tax all of us out of the state. It's outrageous. So that's door number one. We can do nothing, and we all get taxed out of our homes, and Ohio continues to decline. Possibility number two, you hear a lot from the politicians. Well, if you abolish property taxes, there'll be no roads, police, fire, schools, libraries. You're going to have to be your own police department, get an off-road motorcycle because there'll be no more roads. You know, we're going to be Mad Max if we abolish property taxes. And I can hear some laughter because it's ridiculous. As Tom Z, a round of applause for Tom Z. This man is the Tea Party. As Tom Z said, we're adults. No one here is seriously proposing to bankrupt townships, to eliminate police departments, or to have no roads. That is not the proposal. Because there is a door number three that no one in Columbus wants to talk about. We have the biggest budget in Ohio history, over $100 billion. And while none of us get to decide what 20% gets cut, unless your title is state senator or representative, it doesn't take a mathematician to know that any 20% gets us there without cutting a dime from roads, police, or fire. And where we really need efficiencies is where most of the money is spent. We need to find those efficiencies in our public schools. Not just because we can't afford this garbage anymore, but because our kids deserve better. When I see the crocodile tears of we need to give more for the children, people seem to forget that there is an inverse relationship in Ohio schools. This is disturbing, right? There's an inverse relationship between spending and educational outcomes. The school districts that spend the most have the worst outcomes for our kids. They are graduating kids who cannot read, and we should be enraged. We should be furious. We should have righteous anger that they are taking tens of thousands of dollars per student. They are taxing seniors out of our homes, and at the same time, they're destroying our young people's future because they are wasting money on levels of bureaucracy that divide the students from their teachers. The Little Red Schoolhouse from colonial times did a better job of educating our kids than these multi-million-dollar complexes in every county across Ohio. So if you honestly care about kids, you want to abolish property taxes, or at the very least, you want to shake up education in a way that hasn't happened for a generation, because our kids are not learning. And that is our future being flushed down the toilet. We have to do better. So once again, we have three choices, folks. Number one, we can do nothing, and we all get taxed out of Ohio. Number two, we abolish essential services like roads, police, and fire, and I don't see anyone lining up for that. Number three, we demand, we don't ask, folks, we demand that our state legislators do their goddamn job, sit down at the table, and cut their budget. And I do mean their budget. And I want to close with this. You're also going to hear your state reps and senators lie to you. And they're going to say, we don't collect a dime of property tax. This is a local problem. But then look at how their face changes when you tell them, well, over 60% of our property taxes go to public schools. And under Article 6, Section 2 of the Ohio Constitution, the state is responsible for paying for public schools, which means over half of our property taxes are going to the state. You are the problem, and if you aren't the solution, we the people will be. That's why there's a petition to abolish property taxes, and that's why it's polling 60, 70, 80% plus, because the people of Ohio have had enough. The property taxes are too damn high, the rent is too damn high, and we aren't going to take it anymore.
I hope this is resonating with you. I hope it's resonating with our audience online. I mean, this is just common sense. You know, this isn't radical. This isn't crazy. These are just the facts. So here's another inconvenient fact for, our friends in the legislature and elsewhere. The fundamental check and balance that we were given in our Constitution was what? You could vote them out of office. But we can't. The whole damn thing is rigged. Sitting right here is Linda O'Brien, my friend. She's running for Mentor School Board. They're running TV commercials against her attack ads because she's running for school board. What? You can't run for Ohio House or Ohio Senate without having, hundreds of thousands of dollars or more. And guess what? Where do you get that money from? Corruption. Yeah, some rich people who want you to do them favors once you get in. Our whole system is fundamentally broke. And now, John said it. They like to push it back on us. Well, you guys all voted for these levies, right? You voted for the school levy, the library levy, the zoo levy, every bloody levy you can name. We voted for that. But again, it's insane. Because when the zoo says they're going to get a levy on the ballot, which is real simple, you just fill out some paperwork on the ballot, they use our money, tax dollars, to promote their campaign. If you want to stop that, where are you going to get the money? What kind of campaign are you going to run? Okay? I'll tell you a little story, all right? I'll tell you a little story about how things have changed. In Portage County, we started the Tea Party, and we started to realize that, what's with these school levies? These schools are putting levies on, they don't even need the money. And then if they pass it, they never use it to fix the roof or to fund the school athletic teams or the band or whatever. They just give it to teachers' salaries over and over and over again. And the union was giving them signs and call lists and all kinds of information and, knock on these doors because these people will turn out. But don't put up any signs so that the other people in the community will know there's a levy in August, okay? So you won't show up to vote. It was rigged. So being conservatives, being people that think, the Portage County Tea Party decided to do phone calls. There would be a levy coming up in Waterloo School District or Straitsboro or whatever, and we would pay to do a robocall. Hi, this is the Portage County Tea Party. We're calling to let you know that on Tuesday there's going to be a levy on the ballot in your community, and they're asking for a 10 mil increase. And by the way, I know you don't know what a mill is. Okay, so we're going to tell you how many hundreds of dollars it's going to add to your already too high property taxes, and we wouldn't even tell them to vote no. We would just say, I'm telling you, there's an election that affects you. You might want to go vote. We defeated every tax levy in Portage County for 10 straight years. Every one. We saved the average family in Portage County $15,000. Guess what? It's illegal for me to make those calls today. 2 years ago, the Biden administration, the FCC, decided that what were called political calls, which I call First Amendment rights of free political speech, that they were in violation of the robocall do not call list. That it wasn't my right to bother you to tell you that the local school district's about to jack up your tax bill. That wasn't free political speech. So when they say, Tom, why are you supporting this? Why are you doing this? My question to them is, what the hell's the alternative? How else are you going to be heard? I got news for you. I have no other way for you to be heard. We just had our legislators in the supermajority House and the supermajority Senate, all Republicans that you and I worked 16 years to vote in. Every state office holder is a Republican. The Supreme Court is Republican. And they just passed some property tax reforms in the budget. And our supposed Republican governor did what? He vetoed it. And then our supermajority House and supermajority Senate, who told you that they were really with you on this property thing, didn't override the veto. Folks, the game is rigged against all of us. And we've got to put an end to it. And the people that are responsible don't even know what they're doing. They don't even understand. And so I'll give you a fact that might help a little bit. Brian was saying about, what if happens, we have 611 school districts. In Florida, their population is twice of Ohio's, and they have 16 school districts. We have 611. That means 611 superintendents, treasurers, academic counselors, curriculum monitors, all that stuff. So I got on my friendly AI. And I said, well, what is the average salaries in Ohio for these positions? And if we consolidated, and I just went with 88 counties, which, by the way, the Ohio legislature could actually pass legislation to say that the only school districts are in the county, one per county. If we did that, according to my AI, if we just did that, we would save $703 million a year. $703 million a year. And guess what? The school wouldn't be affected at all. Everything would still operate. You still have buses. You still have security. You just have one person doing the accounting. Instead of, in Portage County, there's 12. Right? All making $150,000 a year. Okay? It's not hard. It's just common sense. Like, why do we need 611,000? You know why you need them? Because they're all getting a lot of money to be at 611 colleges, high schools, and superintendents. So here's my point. Again, back to the bigger issue. We have to force the reform. They're not going to change if we don't force them to change. And that's harsh, but I don't know, a lot of you look like you raise families and raise kids. Sometimes you got to be tough. It's time for us to be tough and reteach them that their job is to serve us. We're not serving them.
Amen. So, we're going to move our questions. So we get through everybody's questions. We're going to have limit responses to a minute each. So the next question is, the founders viewed property rights as sacred. How can people frame this debate not as a budget issue, but as a freedom issue?
If I look at Article 1 of the Ohio Constitution, I ask the question, are we a constitutional republic or are we a representative democracy? The more that I think about it, and as I look at it, I said, well, the Ohio Constitution has been changed 175 times. I wouldn't call that a rock-solid Constitution, right? If it can be changed that easily. Why can it be changed that easily? All it needs is 50% plus 1. That seems to be more of a democracy as opposed to a constitutional amendment, a constitutional republic. The other thing is, if you look at Article 1, in there it talks about protecting property rights. All of our legislators take an oath to defend the Ohio Constitution. And I submit to you, they're not doing their job. They're violating that very first article in the Constitution. They are not protecting our rights. The other thing that bothers me is they're not representing us. Leonard, I, and John Morrow tried to reach out to our local representatives. Let me call them out. Jamie Gallagher, Dan Troy, Jerry Serino. They wouldn't meet with us. We went down to the state capitol, spoke before the House Ways and Means Committee, told them about property taxes, and they're all just nodding their heads, smiling, thank you very much. We went to the Representative Romer's committee to abolish property taxes, review and reform. They didn't do anything, came up with an 836-page report that did nothing. But interesting part, what they...
Brian, we're going to wrap up. Limited 1 minute. Flies by.
I'll continue, thank you.
Leonard.
This is very simple for me. A lot of people don't like to talk about this, but let's get down to the basics. There are 3 ordained governments by God: the family, the church, and the state. All right. The family came first. We have a responsibility to take care of the land. It wasn't getting to the government. The government should not be in the business of owning property. It's that simple. Now, if they do own property, the problem is, if you don't own the property, guess what? You're the property. And if you're okay with that, then we got some serious issues in this country.
Sure, punch that.
Government never saw a dollar it didn't want to spend. And the only way we can have freedom and smaller government is if we reduce the size of government. We cut spending. But government is not going to voluntarily cut itself. So once again, the question of, how do we find the savings in advance so that we can cut property taxes is flawed from its inception. The way you ultimately cut spending and cut government is you start by starving the beast. You take the taxes away first, and then government is forced to cut. But without that force, they will not do it. The only way we are going to have more freedom and smaller government is if we cut taxes first and let God sort it out.
Amen. So, it's real simple, folks. At its core, it's a liberty issue. Do you own your home or not? I think it was Ron DeSantis had a great thing on X where he said, when you buy a TV set and you pay the tax when you buy it, do you have to pay taxes every year for as long as you own that TV? Or do you own the TV? We just want to own our homes. It's a liberty issue. It's about liberty. And so you have a right to your property. It's in the Constitution. That's what this is about.
And now we're going to move into audience questions. So we have had people write on the note cards of what their questions is. Our first question is, how would we fund city services, police, fire, schools, and city administration?
Andy, that wasn't your question, was it? Okay. It's my friendly Concord Township administrator. He and I, we have a lot of civil discourse, so I appreciate you coming here tonight, Andy. And what I mentioned to Andy, and we've talked about, we're not anarchists. We're going to pay for services. But in Concord Township, I pay $2,100 for Concord Township services. What I'm looking for is I want to know how much I'm paying for police, how much I'm paying for fire, roads and bridges, any others. Because I want transparency, to me, is one of the keys to good governance. Honesty, integrity, and transparency. We must have that, or we don't have good governance. And if I find out that I'm paying $1,000, for police services, I want to find out what Leroy. I want to find out what Mentor's paying. If I'm paying $100 and they're paying $100, I'm paying $1,000, they're paying $100. I'm going to ask the question why. So that transparency is extremely important. And as I said to Andy in his office, I said, Andy, send me a bill. I'll pay for the services. Just don't tie it to my home. We can't do that.
Yeah, this is also very simple for me. When you look at the fire and the police and all the other, what you call EMT and stuff like that, this is nothing more but insurance when you get right down to it. All right? If I want to pay for insurance, guess what? You give me a quote. You look at my house, whether it be square footage or whatever. If I got $1 million home, it may take this to do it. But it should be a point where you have equitability around the board. Because if you don't do that, if John has $1 million house and I have a $200,000 house, and then why is he paying more? We'll get the same service, and I'm punishing him because he has a bigger house. It doesn't make sense. So that's coveting. You got it.
I want to take this a step further. We already pay a state sales tax, first adopted in 1934 for 3 reasons: relief of poverty, paying for schools, and the local government fund. Mysteriously, that 5.75%, the majority of the sales tax we all pay in any county, more and more of it stays in Columbus and less of it comes back to the people who actually pay it. When we adopted the income tax decades later, much the same purpose: fund local government, fund schools. And now, more and more of it stays in Columbus, and the cuts we've seen in the recent budget only benefit those who make over $100,000 a year. Not the folks who are being taxed out of their homes, but the folks who make the biggest donations. The state legislature seems to have money to pay for $600 million for the Cleveland Browns Stadium, to cut property taxes for power plants, the people who make big donations, but they don't have money for seniors, they don't have money for taxpayers, and they don't have money for the folks who really need it the most. I'm not here to tell you that it's a quid pro quo and that they're being paid for their votes, but it's a little suspicious when Jimmy Haslam can do no wrong, but our seniors just don't matter, even 3% of their budget. The bottom line is we're already paying enough tax. The state sales tax, the state income tax. How many goddamn fees are we paying on top of that? We don't need to pay more. And we already have the mechanism for the state to deal with this. They put the money back in the local government fund, so our townships and cities will be A-OK. We need to keep more of the money at home for the people who pay it. It's not state dollars. There are tax dollars. It's time for us to keep them home.
Okay, so what I need all of you to do is to realize you're asking the wrong people the question. Okay? You need to go and ask your school district what they would do, or ask your township. If this passes, what will you do? As John just said, there's every tax and fee you can name, right? And you guys are old enough, I can see the gray hairs here. Remember when they brought out the Ohio lottery? What was the money for? It was for the schools. It was to pay for the schools. replaced it with the lottery money. That's called bait and switch at best and theft in reality. And they kept it in Columbus and they spent it. You need to ask them how you're going to cut spending and provide the same services. Not us. That's not our problem. That's a trap. I'll give you a little insight. Last year in North Dakota, they had a repeal property tax on the agenda. An amendment, Coster's amendment last year, North Dakota. It failed by 63%. And I talked to the guy who ran the campaign. And I said, what happened? And it's even worse there. And get this, this is how insane this is. In North Dakota, they have so much money from the oil and gas and mining there that goes to the state that they could have cut zero property taxes and they wouldn't have had to cut any spending in the state budget. And they lost 63%. I said, what happened? And he said, fear of the unknown. I said, well, what did they do? He said, what the lobbyists did and the unions did is they went to every fire department, every school district, every township, every government entity, and they said two things. Don't you ever offer a solution to this. Don't you ever do that. And when they ask you, you just plead Armageddon. You'll have no firemen. You'll have no police. You won't have any services. The water plant will fail. They taught them that, and that's what they did. And it lost by 63%. We're not going to let that happen here in Ohio because you're smarter than that, and you're going to ask questions, and you're going to say, you know what? It's your damn job to tell me how you're going to fix this. You're getting paid a lot of money. I want an answer. How's that? That's how we're going to pay for this.
Very good question. We have national think tanks and planners have been talking about regionalism and affordable housing long before it was a problem in Ohio. Steadfast in the belief that COVID lockdowns were orchestrated in part to create the property tax crisis we're now facing, with limited options at our disposal at a citizenry, one has to assume that a demand to abolish property taxes has been forecasted by those that have forced the lockdowns. As someone who lives in a township and values the autonomy provided by having a local control, I know that I'm first on the chopping block. Why should I trust this process to not lead to the consolidation of my local government and services, delivering us all to the regionalism that string pullers have long sought after?
Who's holding the microphone? Oh. Affordable housing. Interesting. There was a state senator that told me, Brian, if seniors can't afford their property taxes, they should sell their home and move into an apartment. I found that a little cold and callous. I really do. So if you think about affordable housing, government build these, I've even seen them on the internet, little small tiny houses, less than 1,000 square feet. Maybe it has a bathroom too. We'll throw that in. What happens if you move into a government affordable housing? Do you think your liberties go away? Do you think your Second Amendment right? That's out the window, right? And certainly don't talk bad about the government. Ladies and gentlemen, we've become a socialist nation. I've had Representative Dan Troy at the Townhall meeting said that the school funding is the most perfect form of socialism from the redistribution of wealth. This is not me saying it. This is a representative that's saying it. We're socialists. So I just asked the question, has this experiment known as the United States of 250 years, is it over? Are we willing to throw it away? Are we willing to ensure that your children and grandchildren and future generations have to live in a government housing? What form of governance do you want? Do you want to emulate China? Australia? Canada? I'm not willing to give that up yet. And with your help, Like I said, we'll stand on the front lines. We'll do the work. And we'll make sure that our representatives and our senators know that we, the people, are not backing down.
All right. Thanks, Grant. Well, this is another simple one for me. We all live in Ohio, right? We're Ohioans, right? That's the way we should look at it. I get really bothered when someone says, well, we have our township, we want our village, we want this. I say, wait a minute. Why are we treating ourselves differently when we're all in the same state? So consolidation of resources, utilization of resources, that should be given across the state. This whole concept of love thy neighbor, that's a command in the Bible. That works for governments too.
So we've heard from a lot of townships, we only take in property tax. We'll be out of money in a couple of months if property taxes are abolished. But we all know that not a single state rep or senator could get reelected if that actually happened. Not a single township trustee could get reelected if there was suddenly no police or fire or services in townships. Number one, if property taxes were abolished tomorrow, the state government logically would give the same taxing authority to townships that cities and villages already have, which means they would have an income taxing authority, and they'd ironically have more money than when they started. Number two, even if the state was so incompetent, and they all said, I don't care if I get unelected. Now, I've never seen a politician who really meant that, but let's say they truly were suicidal and they said, I don't care. I'm not going to do a damn thing and I'm going to let the world burn, and they start playing a fiddle like Nero. Townships already have the authority to become a village or a city if they want to. And they would have a year to put that on the ballot, and rationally everyone would vote for it if they had to. So there's no universe where you wouldn't have roads, police, or fire in townships. We have to start from that proposition. Now, obviously we expect better from our state legislators. They should address this problem head on, and frankly, townships, cities, and villages, in my view, should be made whole with the state income tax and state sales tax we already pay. I don't think it should have to come to that because the state has more than enough money to cover it. Recently, Senate President Rob McCauley said, we only get $15 billion from sales tax and $10 billion from income tax. That's not enough. And people in the comments started to go, wait a second, isn't $25 billion a year more than $20 billion? There actually is enough money for the state to completely make up the difference in property taxes. They'd have to make some cuts. But we have the mechanism for them to give the money back to the people who actually pay it. We do it with the homestead exemption already. We do it through the owner-occupied credit and other credits. It's not as though the state doesn't know how to return our money to us. They just don't want to. So the question of what would my township do, it's the wrong question. You won't even be able to afford to live in your township if we don't do something about this soon. You're going to be taxed out of your township. Time to end this.
To back up that point, had a conversation about Bath Township down by Akron. And the township trustee said, we get 96% of our income from property taxes, Tom. How are we going to survive? Well, here's a little dirty secret that John just kind of let you in on. In the state of Ohio, by law, once you reach 5,000 residents in a 4-mile area, there's a bunch of little criteria, you can become a city. And if you become a city, you can have an income tax. And so Bath Township, the answer is, hey, become a city, have a 2% income tax like a lot of cities have, and you'll make more money than you're making on property taxes. And his answer was, yeah, but we don't want to be a city, we want to be a township. Well, I'm so sorry. Okay? This is what we're trying to make clear to you guys. There are answers. What infuriates me, and I've heard this, and I think some of the panel has heard this. We have heard that there are mayors and city councils and other agencies meeting about this issue and saying things like, if they pass this, we're just going to raise their water bill to the same level as their property tax. We're going to raise their sewer bill to the same level of property tax. What the hell part of we can't afford our government don't you understand? And the answer is all of it. They don't understand any of it. Because only an idiot would say, have their customers say, we can't shop at your store anymore, so we're not coming anymore, and they would raise their prices. Right? Okay? So this is what we're dealing with. A broken culture. A culture of people who are elected to run our governments who have completely forgotten that their job is to help us run our governments efficiently. So as far as housing and losing autonomy, none of that has to happen. You can have everything you already have. It's just got to be affordable. And it can be, particularly with AI coming as fast as it's coming. That's a big part of this.
And to follow up, I have one question that formulated, Tom, after your point is, currently in Ohio there are 1,308 townships in the state of Ohio. Townships were originally created because of there were not enough people to become cities or villages. Do you think that now that there are some townships that are larger than neighboring cities, do you think that they should be required to become cities and incorporate? Or do you think that what do you think the solution is for those townships that have become sometimes larger than the surrounding cities?
Well, that applies to township that I'm in. Ultimately, I still believe in the vote of the people, and I'd put that on the ballot for the people to make that decision. But they should also know that if we become a city, we're going to abolish the property taxes. I'm also concerned about, they say, well, if we put an income tax on the ballot, Brian, if you're not paying into that income tax, should you vote on that issue? And I think that's a valid concern. If you don't have any skin in the game, should you really be able to vote on that issue? I have some questions about that in my own mind, that it would not be right for me to automatically vote because I'm not going to pay anything, to put that burden on somebody else. So I'd like to see those people that have skin in the game, they're the ones that vote for it.
Again, for me, this is, utilization of resources. I work for, a big major company here, and then there are some business sectors that were doing well, others that were not doing so well. But we had to look at the collective as a whole. What are we going to do to run our business? So what we did, if I was an engineer in a certain sector and they needed resources, I would go and help the other organization structure build itself up because we were one company. This whole idea of autonomy is dangerous to the extent that if you isolate yourself and don't utilize resources around you, then you're creating your own problems. So all I would say to these people is this. We have to recognize we live in the state of Ohio. We are all in this together. So even if I'm separate from you, what happens to me is going to impact my next door neighbor. You can't escape that. So this whole idea of trying to isolate ourselves and thinking you can sit on an island, it's just not a good idea. It never works.
The only folks who are territorial about the borderline between Concord Township, Painesville Township, Akron, Cleveland, and all the municipalities are the politicians. And you see this with senior centers. Every single city, every mayor wants its own senior center. But you'll have folks from Wickliffe going to Willoughby, Willoughby going to Wickliffe, Mentor going to Madison, Madison going to Mentor. Folks don't care what the name on the building is. They care about the services that's being delivered. So when I hear about this territorialism, I want to be very clear. It's not residents and neighbors who are like, I'll be damned if I go to the Wickliffe Senior Center. No. That's the mayors and the council people who are being jealous of their control and their power. Now, I want to be very clear. I'm not talking about any one person. I'm talking about every politician. The politicians care about the boundaries. The people don't. They care about whether we're delivering an efficient service to them. Now, townships certainly need to be reformed. Whether you call them something different or you make them into cities, it's beside the point. Quick question. How do you think a township trustee's salary is determined under state law? Anyone know?
Township trustee?
By the budget.
It's by the budget. It's not by population. The more they spend, the more they're paid. Who would establish a government where the more you spend, the more you're paid? That is a terrible idea. So that needs to be changed. Now, whether we call them cities or we just give them reforms so that they can operate more efficiently, it's beside the point. The people don't care if it's called a township, a city, or a village. They care if they're getting good police, fire, and roads at an affordable price.
Agreed. The great Dennis Prager, and thank God he's still with us, is able to speak and think, most importantly, because he's such a thinker, said a few years back that he believed, because he studied communism and things, that he felt that all men and women longed to be free. That was their biggest driving force. And then he admitted that that has changed. That most people want to be taken care of. They don't want to be free, they want to be taken care of. And that's what Brian and Glenn and those guys were talking about. So what you're facing here is the fight against. What you're facing here, what this ballot initiative is about, while we're forcing the politicians and people to do things they don't want to do, part of it is forcing us to do things the Constitution requires us to do. To be self-reliant, right? What is this country about? Self-governance. Well, what does that mean? And we in the Tea Party had this all wrong, I got to tell you. When we started the Tea Party, we thought that self-government, government of the people, by the people, for the people, meant that we needed to recruit, John to run for office, and we needed to help him get elected, and we needed to vote, and we needed to get in office and govern ourselves. That's not what it means at all. That's not what it means. The Founding Fathers said what? This form of government, a republic, is for a religious and moral people and is totally unsuitable for any other. Why? Why? If you want limited government, if you want freedom, then you got to follow the Ten Commandments. This is why Charlie Kirk was so great, because he brought him back together after 100 years of them lying to us about the separation of church and state, which is bullshit. Amen. Never said that in the Constitution. It says that you shall not establish an official church, but it required you to be able to practice whatever religion you wanted in your daily life, which means in your elected office. When you're running your company, when you're running your church. Why? Just take the Ten Commandments, let alone the Bible. If you don't kill people, you don't need a lot of police. If you don't steal from your neighbor, you don't need a lot of police. If you take care of your spouse and your family, you don't need children's services. If you stay at home and you teach your kids, you don't even need a bloody library. Okay? What has happened with the left and the communists have done is they have incentivized you to want to be taken care of. That's what Obamacare was about. Am I making the point to you guys that this is about a hell of a lot more than you saving money on your property taxes? And a hell of a lot more than about being about freedom and liberty? It's about returning to what made this country great. And this is the amendment that will do that. And you should be proud to be part of it. And you should fight like hell against anyone who says this isn't good for Ohio.
Hey, Tom, we're going to have you the microphone. We're going to do some closing back. Everybody gets some closing.
Hi, so I'd just like to make a couple of comments. First of all, this is our first go-around here. I want to know, is this like, is this answering your questions? Is this helping you? Yeah? Yeah, so raise your hand if this is helping you. All right, I just want to make sure. And I think what we'll do, and these guys are doing a great job and everything, but I want to make sure that you're getting your questions answered. I want to make sure that if you have a sticking point on this, that we're covering it, okay? So you have a bunch of questions yet?
No, we're done.
We've asked.
Okay, so we're done. So who here has a question that we can pose to them? You guys got to get fast answers. But that has not been addressed, and it's a sticking point for you. Who has something? A lot of people. All right. I'm going to go around. Do you mind? Or you want to go around? You go around.
You're down here with the mic. Start.
All right. What is your question?
So long ago, they said our taxes should not be paying, our property taxes should not be paying for the schools. They've never fixed that. Why?
Because they could get away with it and pass it on to you. The Supreme Court ruled the state should have paid for that. And they didn't on purpose. And they said, well, do a property tax. And that's why. They didn't want to fix it. So we've got to fix it. Next question.
I got something to add to that.
Go ahead, Brian, add to it.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's the Rolfe case. But what we're seeing now is that the legislators, and I saw this article was written by the Director of Communications for the Senate Republicans, Fortner, I believe his name was, and he says the payment of the schools using property taxes is constitutional. And he's saying that it's constitutional because the legislators have said that it's constitutional. He obviously does not understand the role of the branch of the government. So until the Supreme Court says it's constitutional, it's still unconstitutional.
Penalties for that person.
We got a question here. Go ahead.
When is the deadline for the petitions to be signed?
The deadline for us to get all of the petition signatures to the Secretary of State is July 1st of 2026 to get it on the November 2026 ballot. We're asking all of the circulators that we would like everything in to our post office box in Mentor by June 1st. But we'd like to, so that we're not processing 500,000, signatures in the month of June, we'd like to see all of the petitions that are completed sent to us on an ongoing basis so that we have a chance to process the petitions.
Just a quick question. Should this go on the ballot November 2026, and should it pass? A lot of people that I've talked to think property taxes are going to end January 1st, 2027. But the way I read it, property taxes are collected in arrears, so property taxes actually won't end until January 1st of 2028, which would give the legislature a year to get its head out of its dupa and correct the issue. Can you clarify that? Because there's nothing on the website, there's nothing on your social media, and people are thinking, hey, I'm going to vote yes, and 6 weeks later, I'm going to have a fistful of dollars, and I don't think that's accurate.
Yeah, and that's a real legal question. It's a very good question, Andy. Their answer is they won't be collecting anymore after the January 1st. But the unfortunate thing, it's very important that people realize that when Leonard and Keith and the committee got together, we couldn't find any attorneys to help us. None. There was one young lady, and I need to give her a lot of credit. Kirtland resident, Vesna Mijic-Barisik. Without her, we wouldn't be here today. So we give her credit. And I'm not avoiding your question. I don't have all the answers on legal questions, but I know that there will be, after January 1st of 2027, there will be no more on the ballot. Now, we're going to have to answer that question, and it's a valid question since it is in arrears. But we're hoping that the legislators take us very seriously. They didn't take us seriously. That's why we're here right now. They didn't pay any attention to us. But now they should be able to answer the question. I'm sure there's going to be legal roadblocks. They're probably going to have lawsuit after lawsuit on this. So I can't answer directly, but we do know there will be no more on the ballot. Maybe Commissioner Pletcher can have a better answer.
Brian, as George would say, you're not a lawyer, you just play one on TV.
Brian is right that this will certainly be litigated, but my read is the same as yours, that property taxes are collected in arrears, and so there would still be 1 year of property taxes, giving the legislature those 365 days. Now, I think it's awfully generous that they get a year on top of the decades and decades and decades since DeRolf. So I don't really think they have much to complain about with a whole year to figure things out. But frankly, they should be able to figure it out in a day because we're having this conversation now. They should be doing the work of cutting our property taxes, of giving instant relief even before this ballot amendment gets to the voters, because people need help and they need relief now. A year from now, a lot of folks will have lost their homes. A year from now, a lot of folks will have left Ohio, and that's a tragedy.
Quick point. I was talking to one of my clients who's a financial planner, and he said he did some calculations. If you eliminated the real estate taxes out of your mortgage payment, out of escrow, a 30-year mortgage would go down to 18 years in that time. So I mentioned that to another one of my clients, and she's a single woman, makes good money. She's like, oh, I don't pay that much in taxes, but if you make an extra payment and you still get the real estate taxes, you'd get that down to 18 years. But I told her, if you get rid of the real estate taxes and you make that extra payment, you'll pay your mortgage off in 10 years. So I talk about home ownership. The young people are really upset, including one of my daughters. They can't afford home ownership, but you get a situation. I would make that extra payment a year. Could you imagine a family of 4 having a mortgage paid off in 10 years and then no more residual property taxes so they could better take care of their own family, their own education, their own needs? That's freedom.
Amen.
Who has another? Some more. Yeah, Kirsten.
I'm hoping that you'll use the material. There's so much rich material that you brought tonight. Will you transcribe this and use it in the ongoing marketing of this effort? Because I'm hearing the same questions about, well, how are you going to replace it? How are you going to replace it? I mean, that's a really strong thing. So I encourage you to use it for marketing to get people to be circulators, as well as marketing it when it's time to encourage people to go vote for it at the ballot.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, who else? I want to make sure that before we wrap it up tonight, that everybody can ask a question. Go ahead.
2 quick questions. One would be, where do you see the biggest fraud, waste, and abuse? I understand at the state level, but moving down to the school districts, if you were to name like 1 or 2 things that you could eliminate. Now, obviously the salaries would be consolidated if you guys the state consolidated districts. But is there operational expenses, we're paying $18,000, $20,000 a student, which seems crazy high. The other question I have is kind of to piggyback off what the one lady just mentioned. Everybody in this room 100% agrees. I 110% agree, everything that's been said. But there's 50, 60% of the population out there that is going to be skeptical. They want to see specifics. How's this going to get replaced? I know it's not going to be dollar for dollar. But for those people, have you guys thought about giving a different message, or maybe more specific message to get them off that thought?
So 2 things. Number 1, we can save a lot of money in the school districts from consolidation. I think Tom Z's estimate is very conservative. He's not including benefits and overhead on top of the salaries themselves. We're talking billions, not hundreds of millions when you consolidate. Number 2, Do you realize there is a principal for every grade now in public school? Independent of consolidation, if we cut those administrators, we can provide a better education to our kids at a much lower cost. So there is incredible opportunities for savings. But I have to say this as a number two. I have to say this. We're asking the wrong question, and this is the message we need to deliver to our neighbors. When the government sends you the property tax bill, do they ask, how are you going to pay for it? Do they ask, how are you going to make up the extra 15, 20% we're going to add to your bill this revaluation? No, they put the onus on you and your kitchen table to cut your budget, and they don't even ask how it's done. What we need to do here is flip the burden of proof. It shouldn't be the taxpayer who just has to write the blank check and figure it out. It should be the professional legislators that we hire to do that job. The onus and the burden should be on them to figure it out, not you.
Okay, so let me give you some specifics, okay, just to give you, because we just don't even understand, like Brian talked about, the auditors or the consultants they hire and all this stuff. So police and fire, okay? We love our police, we love our fire, but there's a scam that's been going on for decades, and that is that they get overtime to increase their salary. Instead of hiring more police, they just keep getting more, come on in, Joe, because we need some extra help. But the numbers are stupid, okay? This is a couple of things. Shorting staffage and mandatory minimums. Structural overtime in Cleveland, as acknowledged by a study, is $22 million a year extra in overtime. $22 million a year in Cleveland. In Columbus, they actually pay double pay, explicitly moved to restrict some double pay because when they did overtime, they got double their pay. Hourly. I think it was Dayton. Let me see if I can find that one. That was a real good one. Where basically they found out that one policeman was making like $200,000 a year when his salary was like $90,000. Right. Okay? The fire department. They have a little system where, hey, there's a fire going on and you're not on duty. They send out the word, if you just walk inside the yellow tape, you're on duty. You get double time. You're not helping fight the fire at all. Okay? That's intentional. That's a scam. That has to stop. But why don't they stop it? Because they're afraid of the union more than they're afraid of you. Okay? We, the taxpayers, don't have the leverage we should have. We're writing the check and we don't get to say anything about how it's spent. It's so egregious, you won't even believe. Like I was talking to somebody in Marietta, the auditor's department in Marietta, down South Ohio, they have 7 vehicles, 7 cars they own. And my friend said, well, why do you have these cars? And they said, well, in case we have to drive out to inspect the property. Okay? And the guy said, well, when was the last time you used any of the cars? And they said, never.
Probably driving them.
We just turn them over. The waste, fraud, and abuse, if we look, is way more than they ever want you to know. So that's part of it. Now let me go one more step, okay? And this goes to you, Kristen. This is going to be a hell of a thing to have to pass. Think about it. Every single government agency in the state is going to spend every dollar they got to scare the hell out of people and not vote for it. So understand this. We're achieving something already because this video is scaring the crap out of your legislators. Okay? This video, your questions, that's important because they are trying to act and do some things. But we're going to have to raise some big money to win this. I'm talking tens of millions of dollars to win this. We're working on it. There are people that have that kind of money who are interested, who believe in, because they've stolen our money and they don't want to give it back. I hope that answers your question.
To highlight on your point of where we can make cuts, do we know that we have 3 state departments detailing youth services? One for Department of Youth, one for Department of Youth Services, one for youth addiction. 3 departments of youth on the state. They all report to the governor and his cabinet. We have 2 departments of education, higher education and education. We have several duplicate departments that do the same thing, but they're just separate. We could consolidate a lot of those and save a whole lot of money. So that's one of the other thing that we found in Michigan as I was a staffer in Michigan was phantom employees. We set aside money in the hopes that we could hire somebody for that position. And a lot of times those positions go unfilled for 10 years. But we're still setting aside that money just in case we just happen to fill that position later. Phantom employees, by cutting those in our state budget this year in Michigan, we were able to save $3 billion. $3 billion. What do you think we could find in Ohio?
Yeah, it's more of a statement than a question. I'll be short. It's Doge Ohio like Trump is doging America. You find the corruption, you find all the wasteful spending, and that takes care of not replacing the property tax. It just takes care of it. The money goes elsewhere, and it answers all of our questions. That's how you don't replace property taxes. It's unconstitutional anyway, but that's it.
In my closing remarks, we have some stuff that we're going to be announcing tonight, but we will be announcing something along the lines.
All right, so let me just say something really important. Doge. So Brian and Leonard and those guys will tell you that I've been supportive, but I haven't been engaged fully yet with this, and made a big leap that way this week. What moved me was Doge. Because Musk and those come in and go in, and they got all these things that they see, duplication, we're going to get rid of all this stuff, and they're burning the Tesla dealerships to try to get them to stop. And we go through this whole process, and what do we got? We got one stinking rescission for $9 billion that they passed in August. That is 1/10 of 1% of our budget. That's what we cut. And what did that say to me? That said to me, you can't ask them, you got to make them. Okay? That's why we got to do this, because we got to take the damn money and then tell them, figure out how to fix it. Because if you don't, they ain't never doing that.
We're going to go to closing remarks here. We got to be out of here by 8.
No, I think we got to be out by 7:45.
Okay.
So closing remarks are like 1 minute or so. But you can hit us with your best closing argument. Let's motivate them before on the way out here.
Ladies and gentlemen, the founding fathers of the United States had great wisdom, which is exactly why the U.S. Constitution makes it unconstitutional to levy property taxes based on value. If Ohio had a constitution as wise as the one that George Washington and Thomas Jefferson supported, we wouldn't be having this discussion. Property taxes today are a tax on unrealized gains on income you haven't even earned yet. That's what Kamala Harris proposed, the crazy liberal Democrat that we all voted no on. And yet our Republicans in Columbus are proposing to continue the exact same tax on unrealized gains that socialist proposed nationally. Thank God we have a Constitution, and thank God we have a constitutional president like Donald J. Trump, who stopped that. Thank God. But we have to bring that same common sense to Ohio. We need to bring Doge to Ohio. We need to bring Trump's values to Ohio. And if you don't want any kings, you don't want to pay tax just to live on your own land. Because what did kings do? They taxed you for the privilege of living on the king's land. No kings means no property tax. This issue should be bipartisan, and we need to get all of our neighbors, Republican, Democrat, blue, purple, in between. Everybody needs to come together. It's not just Commissioner No. This is the whole state of Ohio saying, no, we're not going to take it anymore. No more property tax.
Yeah, this is going to be real quick. We're talking about a societal change here. And the reason why I say that, and I'm going to make it quick, we are an ungodly society. an uneducated society, and we've got an impotent church. And that is a recipe for disaster. So this is a formidable task. This is not something where you're going to flip a switch and just get away with that. You're aborting all these children, killing the population, becoming a culture of death, and think you're going to say, oh, I'm sorry, it's over. There's going to be consequences to this. And all I want to tell people is this. If you do not start working toward liberty and ownership and doing what God has called us to do, guess what? We deserve the punishment.
Right.
10 seconds. I do want to give a shout out to Representative Jennifer Gross and Tex Fisher, who did sign the petition. So ask your representatives and senators, will they sign the petition? It is obvious to me that we need new blood at the state capitol, and I hope I can talk Commissioner Plechnik and Auditor Galloway to join Representative David Thomas in helping solve this problem for all Ohioans. Thank you very much.
Well, I want to thank everyone and all of our panelists here. We had a great conversation tonight. One of the things I did want to announce tonight is through American Republic Policy, our policy think tank, which is chaired by former U.S. Ambassador Alan Keyes, we do have a Center for Government Accountability and Efficiency, our DOGE task force that is going through and actually eliminating and proposing to eliminate government departments' waste, fraud, and abuse. We've already started doing that with Representative Gross. We did it in the Medicaid budget this year. We proposed over 150 amendments to the Medicaid budget this year alone. Out of those 150, 50 of them actually made it into the budget. So we are working towards that. So we have a sign-up sheet in the back. If you want to be a part of our DOGE team, sign up on the sign-up sheet in the back. You'll see it, the Center for Government Accountability and Efficiency. We hope that you'll join us. But I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I want to thank you for joining us. And we want to thank you for tuning in online as well as joining us in person.
All right, thank you everybody for coming tonight. Appreciate it. The battle is just starting, so let's get this done. Yeah, let's get it done, guys. Gotta get it done. Thanks for coming. Yeah, make sure everybody signs the petition before you leave, please. Yeah, sign the petition.